Welcome to the Midnight Mind. Subscribe if you're new here, and if you enjoy this kind of content, hit the like button too, it really helps. It's midnight, and that means one thing. It's time to enter the mind of Machiavelli. Have you ever noticed how often the choices in your life feel free, yet your decisions seem strangely predictable? You tell yourself you're acting from desire, instinct, or reason, but something deeper guides you, something shaped long before the moment you decide. This episode is about that invisible architecture. It's about the forces that persuade you without permission, the currents that move you without your awareness. Machiavelli hinted at them, Bernays perfected them, and modern systems have turned them into daily instruments of influence. This is the landscape you already live inside. Machiavelli understood that people rarely examine the origins of their choices. He believed human beings respond to appearances more than truth, and he warned that rulers who grasp this can guide the masses without force. His insight wasn't sinister, it was observational. People follow what feels familiar, safe, and socially rewarded. They trust symbols, faces, and narratives that reduce complexity into simple emotional cues. Today, those cues don't belong to princes or kings. They belong to platforms, corporations, and algorithms that shape meaning faster than you can question it. Centuries later, Edward Bernays, the father of modern public relations and nephew of Freud, weaponized the psychology of desire. He realized that people don't make decisions rationally. They make them emotionally, and then justify them with logic. Bernays used symbols, celebrities, and manufactured trends to guide public behaviour as easily as a shepherd directs a flock. His work wasn't merely persuasive, it was architectural. He helped build the very system that convinces you that your preferences are unique, even when they are carefully engineered responses to calculated emotional triggers. The result is a world where choice feels abundant, but originless. You scroll, click, buy, agree, and identify with ideas that appear spontaneous, but are shaped by unseen hands. Today's manipulation doesn't shout or threaten. It whispers, it suggests. It predicts your impulses before you even label them as impulses. And when you comply, you feel strangely satisfied, as though the thought you chose was entirely your own. This is the genius of the modern strategist. He gives you the illusion of freedom while narrowing the path you believe you chose. Modern manipulation works because it aligns with ancient psychological instincts. Jung believed that much of human behaviour arises from the unconscious, those layers of instinct, memory, and archetype that operate beneath awareness. The unconscious doesn't resist influence. It gravitates toward meaning, pattern, and emotional coherence. When a political slogan, a product, or a social movement speaks in symbolic language, the unconscious responds instantly. Your conscious mind only narrates the aftermath. What feels like a choice is often just recognition, an internal echo answering an external signal broadcast directly to your deeper instincts. This is why the most effective manipulation never feels manipulative. It speaks to desires you already believe are yours. Bernays used this when he linked cigarettes to women's liberation, transforming a harmful product into a cultural symbol. The campaign succeeded not through logic, but identity. It allowed people to act on a desire they already felt rising, then redirected it toward a commercial outcome. This pattern repeats today with trends that seem grassroots, movements that appear spontaneous, and choices that feel irresistible. You're not forced. They simply align with who you think you are. Machiavelli understood that people rarely rebel when they feel seen, even if the recognition is simulated. Give the public a story that resonates with their fears and hopes, and they'll embrace the storyteller. Modern strategists learned that if you shape the narratives people use to define themselves, their choices will follow effortlessly. The trick is subtlety. Influence works best when it stays hidden behind the curtain, when the persuader becomes invisible, and the target believes they're moving toward freedom while they're walking a pre-designed route. The digital age magnifies this dynamic. Algorithms anticipate your impulses through data points you never notice. Every scroll, pause, and hesitation becomes a psychological fingerprint. The systems observing you learn your rhythms better than you do. They know what outrages you, delights you, distracts you, or calms you. With enough data, persuasion becomes prediction. You aren't choosing from a universe of possibilities. You're choosing from the options placed in your path by systems designed to maximize engagement, profit, and compliance. Freedom feels present, but the boundaries of your decisions are pre-drawn. The unsettling part is that manipulation doesn't require malice. It simply requires structure. A system built to optimize attention will inevitably manipulate emotion. A system built to deliver convenience will inevitably limit alternatives. A system built to predict behaviour will inevitably guide it. Machiavelli would recognize the pattern immediately. Power rarely announces itself. It embeds itself quietly inside the assumptions of daily life. The more familiar the system becomes, the less you question its influence. The more you rely on it, the more your choices merge with its preferred outcomes. But manipulation only works because people crave certainty. Nietzsche believed human beings are driven by the need to impose order on chaos. We cling to narratives that simplify complexity, even if those narratives limit our freedom. When someone or something offers clarity, we accept authority without noticing the bargain we've made. The illusion of choice thrives on this weakness. It offers simple decisions that feel empowering while concealing the larger landscape that has already been chosen for us. We feel liberated because the constraints remain invisible. And yet, there is another layer. Most people prefer influence over responsibility. True freedom demands awareness, vigilance, and self-discipline. It demands that you confront the sources of your desires instead of following them. Manipulation succeeds because it relieves you of this burden. It gives you ready-made preferences, identities, and beliefs. It hands you the comfort of belonging without the weight of introspection. This is the modern condition, a world where choice is plentiful, but self-understanding is scarce. And without self-understanding, even your most passionate decisions can become someone else's strategy. To understand how deeply this illusion reaches into your life, consider how often you mistake familiarity for truth. You feel drawn to ideas repeated by peers, by media, or by algorithms, not because they resonate with your independent judgment, but because repetition becomes comfort. Jung believed this tendency comes from the collective unconscious, where shared patterns override personal insight. Every time you choose what everyone knows, you're surrendering a piece of your autonomy to a force older and larger than yourself. It shapes your certainty long before you examine the facts behind it. Machiavelli warned that people rarely resist influence when it arrives, clothed in security. He wrote, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear." A reminder that influence works best when it appeals to emotional anchors. Modern manipulation leverages both impulses simultaneously. It offers belonging while hinting at exclusion. It promises opportunity while whispering subtle warnings about what happens if you fall behind. These psychological pressures sculpt your decisions carefully, turning your emotional instincts into predictable patterns that can be nudged, guided, and exploited. Bernays understood this duality intuitively. He believed controlling public opinion required shaping the emotional environment around people, not their rational arguments. This is why modern campaigns, political, commercial, social, rarely ask you to think. They ask you to feel. Feel urgency, feel outrage, feel loyalty. The moment you respond emotionally, your rational faculties shift into justification mode. Your mind begins defending the decision you've already made at a subconscious level. And because the emotion feels authentic, you assume the conclusion was yours. This is influence disguised as sincerity. To resist this kind of influence, you must begin by noticing the machinery operating beneath your daily impulses. Ask yourself why certain messages trigger you so quickly. Ask why specific symbols, phrases, and personalities evoke instant agreement or rejection. Jung believed the shadow contains all the impulses we refuse to examine. They present narratives that appeal to your hidden fears or unacknowledged desires. When the shadow responds, You believe the reaction is natural. But without awareness, your shadow becomes an open doorway for external control. The digital world identifies this vulnerability. Every online platform competes for your attention, and attention is captured most effectively through emotional volatility. Outrage spikes your engagement. Sentimentality keeps you scrolling. Validation encourages you to return. Over time, you learn to crave the emotions your environment rewards. You mistake this craving for preference. But preference shaped by reward is not freedom, it's conditioning. Machiavelli understood that rulers maintain power through predictable behaviour. Algorithms do the same. They create habits so automatic that questioning them feels inconvenient, unnecessary, or even uncomfortable. This discomfort is precisely why many people avoid introspection. Examining your motives means confronting uncomfortable truths. Which desires are truly yours, which fears are inherited, and which choices were quietly suggested by others. Nietzsche believed most people seek refuge in the herd because individuality is demanding. The herd provides ready-made opinions, simple morals, and effortless direction. But conformity always carries a cost. When you outsource your judgment, you surrender your ability to navigate life with clarity. You trade autonomy for ease, unaware that the trade was never consciously agreed upon. But the illusion of control doesn't exist solely to control you. It exists because it works. It keeps society stable, predictable, and economically functional. Systems built on mass behaviour rely on you acting as expected. This is why your environment constantly nudges you toward certain decisions. Buy this, vote this, believe this, or support this. These nudges shape your identity through repetition until the distinction between who you are and who you're encouraged to be becomes blurred. Over time, your sense of self becomes indistinguishable from the currents guiding you. Breaking free doesn't require rebellion, it requires awareness. The goal is not to reject the world's influences, but to recognize them before they take root. Ask yourself whether a thought feels examined or inherited. Notice when a desire appears suddenly, especially if it mirrors a trend. Examine which emotions rise when you encounter persuasive messages. These small moments of awareness create distance, and distance creates choice. When you observe your impulses instead of obeying them automatically, you reclaim the space where real decision-making happens. Influence loses power when it becomes visible. Another safeguard is cultivating solitude. In solitude, you hear your own mind without interference. You begin to notice which beliefs feel solid and which crumble without external reinforcement. This is why true independence always begins internally. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming whole, integrating the unconscious with the conscious. Manipulation thrives on fragmentation. When you don't know yourself, others define you. When you do, influence becomes guidance instead of control. You choose what to accept, what to reject, and what to reshape into something uniquely your own. Practical resistance also requires questioning the incentives behind what you're shown. If a message provokes intense emotion, ask who benefits from that reaction. If a trend spreads rapidly, ask whose interest it serves. Machiavelli taught that power hides behind necessity. Modern strategists hide behind convenience. When something feels especially easy to accept, it's often because someone has invested resources to make it feel easy. Clarity emerges when you trace influence back to its origin. Awareness dismantles manipulation by exposing the motives operating behind the curtain. And so the closing truth is this: the illusion of choice will never disappear. Influence is a permanent part of human society, but your vulnerability to it is not permanent. You become resilient the moment you question the impulses that arise within you. You become free the moment you reclaim authorship of your desires. Machiavelli understood that people are predictable when they remain unaware, and ungovernable when they awaken. The world will always try to shape your desires, but the final decision, whether to remain unconscious or become sovereign, that belongs to you. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Midnight Mind. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button for me. I really would appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.